All right, Bashers, in this video, we've got the Typhon Grom 3S. And, you know, the other day I got a call, and this was only like 2 days ago. I got a call from the hobby store that they said these finally came out, and they called me, said they had one for me. And the cool thing was I wanted this specific color, and this one's considered silver, and it's just the same thing that's on the front of the box here. This one's 3S. Now, we've already done the video on its little brother, and little is kind of a subjective thing because this is the other one and this is brushed. So this one doesn't have a lot of high speed to it. This one's supposed to go 50 plus miles an hour. And that, for something this size, that's pretty sketchy sounding, and I'll be really interested to see how it works. This one here is one of the best handling Groms that we've played with yet. This one has really good stability and it handles really well. And I always thought it could use a little bit more speed. Well, here it is. So they called me, said that these finally came in. I had them hold one in this color and I picked it up. Now, keep in mind, we're not sponsored by anybody. This we got right off the shelf, just like anyone else would. So this is the same hardware you'd get if you bought one. I'm really excited to get this one out because it's 2 or 3S capable, and it has, my understanding, it has all metal differentials except for the bell housing on the diff itself. The rest, the internals are all metal now, so we don't have any plastic components. It should hold up a lot better. And if it's anything like this little guy, it's going to be super durable. This should be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get this one out of the box. When they told me they came in, I was really excited. We need to take a look at the box real quick, and then we're going to get it out and see what you get. All right, so that's the box itself. Now let's see what came inside it. Okay, so let's get this out of the box. Huh, no tape, imagine that. That's not normal. Okay. Well, the packaging's really clean. Let's get a look down at this thing. That's pretty nice. Very good. Nice and tight. Everything looks good. Let's see what else comes in the box. Okay, there's the radio. And it's got the SLT2. And it's got the packet. And that seems to have all the normal stuff in there. We'll go over that in a minute. And that's all. All right, so this is what it is right here, and it's got the same exact footprint as the brushed model over there on the shelf, and I really like the look of it. You know, I've always been a fan of this style of RC. These buggies are just really fun to play with. They're stable and they're quick in a general fashion. We'll see how this one works, but first off, this one came, whoa, I almost dropped it. This one came with the SLT2, and this is a really basic radio. However, see the red or the orange button right there? This one has a trick up its sleeve. This one has active steering control in it, or I think they call it DVC. I'm not sure what that is. We haven't got the manual out to look yet. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. However, this does seem to have that, which is kind of neat. It's also brushless, which is really cool. So this is a basic radio, and I have come to like the feel of these. It's taken a long time for me because they feel small and light, and they feel insignificant as far as the weight goes. It doesn't feel real to me because it's so light, but at the same time, I've gotten to where when we start running these things, I can forget it's in my hand, which makes it the mark of a good radio. So hopefully this one will function right. All the other SLT2s we have function really well. And here's the packet. And the packet it's got a toolkit in here, which is just a basic wrench here, and it's got some batteries for the transmitter, which is always nice. And it's got everything you need to understand the car, how everything functions, and it will also have all of the part numbers that you'll need if you have a problem, gets out of pocket or whatever. And if this thing does 50 miles an hour, you're going to need those part numbers if you're having trouble controlling it, because keep in mind, this is a really small footprint. It's really light. It doesn't hardly weigh anything. So any debris on the ground, at least for its little brother, it gets a little sketchy on that. But as far as this footprint goes, it's one of the most stable ones that we've run so far. So hopefully this one will work in that capacity. And this little guy's supposed to have some of the upgrades that it needed, and it has metal axles, it has aluminum shocks on it, it's brushless, and it's got a fan as far as between that goes. Let's get the body off, and I'll give you a look inside of it. So this has a little trick up its sleeve, which is really cool, and this is the same as the other one. There's a tab right here on the front. You push back on the tab and lift, and this should come right off. Let's see here. Well, there we go. So it just took a little extra pressure. This is brand new, so it might be a little tight, but you get the body off, and it's a pretty basic shell, but it's really nice to have that no need for hood pins. This will snap right on. Tuck the tail in, push the front down, it clips, and it's on. That's kind of nice, and I'm sure once we use it a little bit, that will loosen up. Sometimes new components can be a little rigid. Still, inside here, you can see that it's got the brushless motor right here. It's got the speed control, and this is a combo unit, so it's speed control, and this one should also have the receiver in it. Underneath it, you have your servo there, and there's a fan right here between the two to help keep things cool. That's pretty nice. Battery trays on this side. This is supposed to have all metal running gear in it, as far as the spur gear, the axles in the back, all of that. It has the aluminum shocks up front, and they actually feel real nice. They come down nice and slow. See how that works? These have to be fairly soft because the car doesn't weigh much. You're not dealing with a whole lot of weight. So that's pretty good. It should work pretty well out of the box like that. And it is a one-piece plastic chassis with double wishbone suspension all the way around. We've already played with these tires on the other one, but I don't know how they're going to hold up to brushless power. And that's a real thing because these things might grow, and we haven't got a battery in it yet. We're going to find out next. There's only one thing left to do. Let's take it out and test it, and then we'll come in and let you know what we think. Did I land it? I'm pretty sure I did. Hell yeah, I landed it. All right, so there's the running footage for this one, and this little guy is impressive. I gotta tell you, I like the other one, the brushed one, and let's go ahead and show you side by side here what they are, but it's this one versus that one. And the red one here is brushed, and we covered that earlier, but at the same time, the footprint is identical. So it's the same car, much slower. This one is definitely the high-speed version of that, and it is impressive to say the least. For the size of the footprint, it's really controllable, and I really had a good time with it, but it wasn't perfect. So let's take a look at this here now. In the front, right here, I'm missing one of the saddles for the spring here on the shock absorber. So this piece right here, I took an impact on a rock, I took another one on some asphalt. This thing got like used up hard and it hit some pretty serious stuff. Still unbroken, but what happened was it pulled this up and it popped off this one here on this side. So I did lose that, but in the first outing, and this had many outings on it, in the first outing, this went out and I got about half the battery done in it, and it started making internal noises. And I know what that stuff is because I've been in the hobby a good long time, but the noise was actually the pinion to the spur gear that came loose and it needed to be adjusted. So now we took it apart, and it's really simple, but it's stubborn. So inside here, and this did loosen up, so it comes off pretty easy now. But inside here, there's a rail, and what it is it goes all the way from here, so it's these 4 screws here, it's got a screw in the center here, and 5 screws here, and when you pull this loose, the motor comes loose. But you can take this whole center thing out, but it sits on a couple of pins here, and it just sort of locks down a little bit, so you have to finagle it up and get it loose before this rail comes out. Once you get the rail out, the motor's loose, but you can set it down into the saddle, and you can tighten up the pinion to match the spur gear. That's a thing. Okay, so first time into it, really did work pretty good as far as that goes. Once we reset where the pinion rides, everything ran really good on the running gear at that point. So it was just not set up correctly, and the way we do things here is we run it out of the box, flaws and all, because just because we know what we're doing here doesn't mean we can pre-tune a car to go out and play. We don't run that way here. So if that bothers you, I don't know what to tell you, because this is what a 7-year-old will get, or better yet, the brushed one for a young kid. But this is what someone will get out of the box for Christmas, for example, and they're not going to go and pull it apart and have a look at it. They're going to put a battery on the charger and go right out in the driveway with it. So we run them flaws and all to see what you get. Now, is it fixable? Most times it is. It's something you can tune, and if you've been in the hobby the way we have, it doesn't take a whole long time to do, and these are really simple. So the flaw on this one was simply the pinion wasn't connected down properly, it wasn't set correctly, so the grub screw was actually contacting the spur gear, making a kind of an interesting clicking noise. Once we got that all set up, everything worked like it should. That being said, I'm a fan of the handling. I love the style of it, and when I had the other one and we first got it, I just kept saying, this needs more speed, this needs more speed, this needs more speed. But if you're looking at entry level, and what I mean by that is this is something new to you, you don't have a lot of space, and you just want to podunk around with you and your kids, and if the kids are younger, they're not going to drive that well until they get some practice, and that's literally where this one comes into play. This one is perfect for driveway conditions. You can pretty much run into stuff, and then most times it's not going to break it unless you hook directly into a tire. You can bump it into stuff. It doesn't go fast enough to break it, and it's really durable. Once you graduate up a level, that's where this one comes into play. This thing really screams. It's fast. It really is. For the footprint, it's like watching a dart go by. And that's impressive for the size, but what's more impressive is it does it with this tiny footprint. And that's that's almost unheard of. As far as the 18th scales, if that's what they want to call this, for this scale of RC, this one's by far and away the best handling one and the most fun we've had of any of them. And that's not just buggy class. That includes all of the classes in this scale. This one I definitely had the most fun with. This is definitely not something you get a newcomer. And even though you can take the radio, and this has all of the goodies in it that all of the other ones have, which means it has the cut down right here, so you can put it to 50% throttle, move it to the middle position, that's 75%, or crank it all the way up to 100%, and it gives you full throttle. It becomes a lot more manageable on 100%, or not 100, but 50% with your 3S battery in it. With a 2S battery, it's much more manageable and you can still crank it down. So if you're running a 2S battery and you can run this at 50%, it's just about like having the other one. But if your kids are anything like my kids, they're going to look at this and kick it right to 100% because they know how to read. And pretty soon they're going way faster than their skill set and you wind up buying parts. Still, my recommendation on that is if you've got new kids to the hobby and they're not very old, I would go for the brushed one first. Get your foot in the door. It's all basically the same kind of running gear, but this one has some modifications that doesn't have. So this has the aluminum shock absorbers, all metal running gear. The only plastic in the differentials is just in that housing piece. That's it. And it's got some decent upgrades, and we took some really serious shots with this. And it held up nicely, so at a much slower, like a 2S battery situation, this would do really well, but the other one's just about as tough, and it doesn't go as fast. So if it's a learning situation, learn how to back up, forward, whatever, I would definitely go with the brushed one first. It's a little less expensive. Keep in mind, this one did not come with the battery charger or anything because it's the performance deal, and that's just what was in the box. The other one comes complete, batteries and all, charger included. So it's an all-around package that's a bit more complete than this one. So this is a great one to graduate up to once you mastered the other one. All that behind us, let's get into our 4 questions. And if you watch the channel regularly, you know what they are. Is it fun? Is it durable? Is it worth the money? And what's the total points here at the channel? And this is still entry level, guys. It really isn't all that expensive. So it's still going to get rated accordingly to that. And what that means is we take into account the size of the vehicle and the market it's put into. In other words, this might get, we don't know what it's going to be yet, but this might get, let's say out of 30 points, it might get 15. That's a bad score, I know that. But that would be accurate if I was rating it against the X-Max, and that's not the same class or anything. So we take into account what class it's in when we give our rating. So this one, I got the feeling this one's going to do pretty good in the ratings because most of it was just an utter blast to play with. So, is it fun? That's number 1. So let's get with that. The answer to that is absolutely yes. It was fun. I was startled when I first pulled the trigger. I wasn't expecting that footprint to go as fast as it does right out of the box with no modifications, which is how we run things here most times. And it really was a lot of fun to play with. Was it complete? Not really, but there's some control issues that you can deal with as far as that goes. Now, on page 22 in the manual, it shows you how to use this orange button to set up your DSC, I think they're calling it now. So it helps you set the DSC up. Now, what that is that automatic gyro that helps it control straight when it gets a little wandery in the pockets. Does it help? Absolutely, it does help. It makes a big difference, especially if your skill set's not up there, but it does have its detriment. And we figured that out for ourselves here on this one. Usually this applies to the bigger cars, but on this one, the DSC moves so quickly that the problem is when you get it up in the air, and let's look at it like this. On the ground, this will turn into a skid, like so. And it'll help keep the car straight, and it does it automatically. So that's a really nice addition to this. Now, with this, you can set the levels on it, and you can do it on the radio before you turn the car on, or this can be sitting when you do it. I would turn the car off and do it here, but page 22 tells you exactly how to do it in the manual. For those of you that don't have the manual with you, here's the picture, pause it and have a look at that, and that should walk you through it. But here's basically what it is, okay? So there are 3 different settings for this. There's, well, you count low, medium, and high for your settings on this. We ran it completely on medium when we were running it. You can turn it off. And if you're going to get off the ground, anything that's going to have substantial this to where you're off the ground, turn it off, because it causes meandering in the air really bad. And we cover that in Durability 101. We cover that in a whole bunch of different videos explaining how the gyro is detrimental to flight. Because the problem is when it's in the air, the car tips or whatever, the attitude changes and this starts to seek because it wants to get touched in the ground there and it wants to pull the car around to get it in line. But in the air, there's nothing that you can do that with. It just, these meander. But they're spinning. Okay, that gives you centrifugal action here, and every time they change attitude, it changes the car's attitude. Like this. So if you watch, you get off the ground, you'll see it do this before it hits the ground. It doesn't matter whether you're jumping 20 feet or 50 feet, you'll see it do it. And it'll walk in the air like this, and that's these going back and forth trying to get a hold of the ground and control the car. These tires, when spinning under 3S, get enough momentum up to grow a little bit, and that gives it a lot of power over the car. When you turn that off, these stay straight, and it jumps nice and clean, and it comes down straight as long as your launch is good. If you have a good launch with the gyro on, especially on high, this thing's going to walk, and it's going to come down on the corner. It's going to come down. It's going to just come down wrong because these change the attitude of the car. So, recommendation, and I know that was kind of long-winded, but recommendation, if you're going to jump, turn the DSC system off to jump. And it's really simple if you follow the instructions on page 22. Still, this is the fun category, and I know we kind of stepped off on that, but still, we're going to give this one 9 out of 10 for fun, because this thing really is that much fun. And even for those of us that have been this deep in the hobby for as long as we have, it's really cool to get that kind of surprise nowadays. And question number 2, is it durable? Well, we hit some pretty tough stuff, and we caught a hunk of asphalt when we were at very high speed, and it just really sent it flying. It was out of frame for the camera. That's why you didn't get to see that one. Still, we have some new cameras here, and we were trying to figure out how to set the framing up. Anyway, we didn't get that part on camera, but it really hit hard. And what it did do, and this is totally driver error. I wouldn't blame any of the RCs for this. But when it hooked this one screw right here, this one's a little bigger than that one now because it pulled the other one out. It hit that hard going forward. It grabbed that screw and yanked it out. That's how fast it was going. This doesn't weigh much, so it took a lot of energy to do that. So we had to oversize that and get a new screw in it. Okay, I'm not going to fault the car for that so much, because even though the screws are up front where they do hook into stuff, so be aware of that, that was way out of pocket because I wasn't really paying that close of attention to my run out area. And that really is a thing, because if you don't pay attention, if you don't walk down and have a look at where you're going to run out, you can run into unexpected things. Still, there is that one issue up front, and you know, these are right on the edge. They're right on the very front of this where it's going to hit things. And it does have a little plastic around it, but anything substantial will grab that screw and rip it out, and proof positive that does happen. It's right there. So at the same time, overall, the car is exceptionally strong. It took huge amounts of punishment as far as that, because you guys know we don't run things easily here. We push them to see what they're good for, and then we just basically slice it up and show you what we did. But at the same time, this thing is super durable, and for that we're going to give this one 9 out of 10 for durability, because we did have a failing or two. As far as the light stuff, we lost a screw, basic little stuff like that. Nothing overly substantial. If I hadn't caught that pinion issue right away, it would have destroyed the spur gear. So that was just experience that kept me from ruining it. If you're 7 years old and it makes funny noises, you're going to pull on it because you're trying to listen to it, and you'll start destroying parts. 9 out of 10 for durability. And question number 3, is it worth the money? Yes, it's worth the money for what you get. Still, you do have to add a battery to this one because it didn't come with the battery. Now, we had one of the other ones, so the 2S would have worked in it just fine, but this is a 3S rig, so we had to go out and get another battery. Was it overly expensive? Not really. Got it at the local hobby shop, and it was It was decent. I won't say exactly what it cost, but it was well under $50 to get this one. So it worked out good. It's exactly the battery they show on the box that it requires. And we do have the smart chargers here, so we were able to plug it straight into the smart chargers. We didn't have to buy a charger either. But if you don't have those items, then you're going to have to add that cost to the car. So that's something to take into account as far as that goes. But still, even if you have to buy those items, for what you get, it's exceptional. So as far as that goes, is this worth the money? Yes, it's worth the money, and we're going to give it a score of 9 out of 10 for that, because you really get a lot for your money. Is it the complete package? No. That's what the brushed one's all about, and I'm not sure whether or not you can get this model with everything. The one we have is the one we're rating. 9 out of 10 for value. And question number 4, what's the total score? Well, if you can add, you should already know that it's 27 out of 30 for this one, and that's pretty good. It really is. You know, it's hard to hit a 30 of 30 because reasons. I mean, each car is unique. Each car has its failings. Each car has its strong points. And our job here is to decipher what's what, but not for the class or the actual deal. For those of you that watch the channel, you know we're only rating this one car. We're not rating everything they make. This is the one on the bench right now, and this is the one the score goes to. So this is 27 out of 30, and I think that's pretty good for what it is. So if you haven't already, don't forget to bash that like button and help our content spread. You know, we love doing these unboxing videos, especially when we get to see the new tech and what they're coming out with. And this is our first chance to get a good look at the DSC system, which is somewhat similar to some of the other stuff, the AVC and all that stuff. It's really similar because it's based on the basic premise of steering into the turn. And that is really cool. However, each one is unique, and learning how to set this one was a bit of an adventure. It was really cool to do though, and we enjoy sharing all of that stuff with you guys. Like we said before, we only rate the one we own. We don't rate the class. This is just that one. That one treated us a certain way, and you're gonna know what happened. If you have anything you'd like to add or have one of these models and have some input, please feel free to get down in the comments and help others along the way. For AJ Jam Studios, I'm AJ Sam. Keep bashing it.